Very good. Hey, Merry Christmas! It is so good to see all of you. I want you to know that it's a special night because rarely on any given night do you see Justin and myself in a suit. We are both wearing the suit. That must be a special night here at Columbine United Church. And Christmas Eve is always a special night. It's a magic night. And tonight, as part of that magic that I want to do, is I want to talk to you about my grandfather's violin. I have with me tonight my grandfather's violin, and I inherited my grandfather's violin from my mother. This violin used to sit in my mother's heirloom case in her living room, and I would look at this violin every time I would go and visit it, and I would take it out and I would look at it, and it was always missing a couple strings. The hair on the bow was missing, and I always wondered what it would sound like, this beautiful violin. And so I asked my mother, I said, could I have it? Could I inherit it? She said, you can, but there's one condition, is that you have to learn how to play it. And so, I got the violin, and I, started taking a couple lessons, and I started learning how to play it. And I got to tell you something, it's been a long journey. But more on that in a minute. But the beautiful thing is my mom, when she shipped it to me, she found this little forlorn case that she put it in, and she mailed it to me. And when it arrived, I opened it. I was so excited about the violin. And I took it down to Music Around over here, which is this used music store over here on Bowles and Wadsworth. And when I opened up the case, there was a tremendous amount of oohs and ahs about it. And they told me the violin is over 100 years old. And they showed me on the mark on the inside that it was manufactured in Germany. And so I wanted to learn the story about my grandfather's violin, and I found out this beautiful story about this old violin, that it was purchased by my great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother, for him when he was a little boy, so that he could learn how to play the violin. Now, the interesting thing is that my great-grandfather was an itinerant Baptist preacher in rural Kentucky, not making a lot of money. And so for his wife to buy a violin for their young son to learn how to play, that had to be something special. And I imagine that my grandfather picked the violin and he scrunched his way through Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and London Bridge is Falling Down and, Jingle, Jingle, Jingle Bells for the season. And, it was quite a journey for him. And if you look closely, you'd have to come up close to look at it. There is this gargantuan long crack that goes right down through the center of the violin. And it chunked out this huge portion on the back of the violin. And I have this image that my grandpa, when he was a little boy in a fit of rage, threw the thing down and stomped on it because it was so hard and so difficult to learn how to play. But eventually, over the years, his scrunching and scratching became concertos. And my grandfather could really play this instrument. It was with him his entire life. And I have these memories of him when I was a little boy, that on things like Christmas and Easter and holidays, when we would go to visit, he would take out his violin and he'd put the bow to the violin and he would start playing, and his eyes would close and he would just kind of drift off someplace else playing this beautiful little instrument. Well, then he moved to be with my mom in Portland, Oregon. And as what happens so often when we age, we lose the things that we love. His arthritis became so severe that he was no longer able to play the violin. And so when he passed away, I went to my mother, and my mother put it in this heirloom case with all of her other sacred belongings and of something that she looked for. And then it came to me and to my hands. And now I hope to make something of this violin, to return it to its beautiful status of an instrument playing music. And so I took it to Heidi, who's here tonight. Heidi Snyder, our own concert violinist, violist, and I asked her to play it for me, and she took it out and she put it to her shoulder, she put the bow up, and she started playing it, and man, it was gorgeous. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be like that. I am going to be like that. I'm going to be able to take this bow and I'm going to be able to put it to the strings. And I mean to tell you, I am going to be able to make amazing, amazing music with this violin. And I learned very soon that I'm not the best violinist in the world. In fact, when I play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, it sounds like a black hole. When, London bridges crashed down, jingle bells is scrunched and scratched along. I just, and I've learned that it's really kind of funny. I have dogs at our house, and my playing has this very interesting effect on our dogs. My daughter recorded this the other night. Everybody's a critic. Everybody's a critic. I learned that my violin playing sounds like I'm torturing small animals. What was really funny is last week when I was practicing for tonight, my son Taylor came marching into the room, and he said, "Would you stop playing that wretched instrument?" So I am not the most popular thing at the house when I practice my violin. And there's been times when I've been so frustrated with it, if I wasn't a mature adult, I would have, like my grandfather, thrown this on the ground and stomped on it. I mean, it's such a difficult instrument to play. There's no frets. You have to figure out exactly kind of where your fingers land to make, kind of make sure it's not sharp or flat. And, and I've done this, I've started and stopped 3 different times learning how to play the violin, and I picked it back up the 3rd time in the beginning of December. And I told myself, as kind of my Advent preparation, my Advent discipline, I told myself this time, I'm going to make it work. This time, I'm going to play the violin. I want to learn how to play this. I want to do it. I want to honor my grandfather. I'm going to learn how to play this violin. The thing that has kept me going over this past month, but also through the past year, is the memory of my grandfather. And I thought about this violin, and every time I put it to my shoulder, I think about, and I hold it in my hand, I think about how many times did he grab a hold of this thing? From when he was a little boy, all through his teenage years and his young adult years, to his, when he was in his 60s and 70s. How many times? 1,000 times? Several thousand times? Did he grab hold of this same neck and put his hand to here and make beautiful music? And I put my hand to the violin, and I feel as though that sometimes I can feel his hand wrap around my hand. And I can feel his spirit wrap around my spirit. And sometimes I can feel that presence in such a way that it empowers me to do more than just to play, but to live. To live as my grandfather would want me to live. To play as he would want me to play, but more importantly, to live as he would want me to live. And that's why I decided that I want to talk about this violin on Christmas Eve. It's really funny. It was earlier in the month when I was thinking about what I should preach on for Christmas Eve. I was playing the violin, and I said, there's a Christmas Eve message somewhere in this violin. There's a Christmas Eve message somewhere in the violin. And it was one of those times when I was practicing where I felt him. That I thought to myself, that's it. That's it. Because in the same way that I could feel my grandfather's hand wrap around me, that master's hand around me, is I think that's what we need to feel like when it comes to Christmas. The magic of Christmas is knowing that God's hands wrap around us. We oftentimes wonder, well, who is God? And how does God act? And we think about God being this vengeful God, God being an angry God. And those are images that we need to put away. They're not helpful images. It's not who and what God is. God wraps divine hands around us and cares for us. And on Christmas Eve, we say that God is Emmanuel, that God is with us. And that is the baby Jesus. The baby Jesus is God with us. And so we say on Christmas Eve that we need to have the baby in the manger, that little baby's hand, wrap around our own lives. In the same way that my grandfather would wrap me in his love and care, the baby Jesus needs to grab a hold of us and wrap us in his love and care. Especially when life implodes on us. I've talked with many people about 2016. And 2016 has been a hard year for a lot of people. Talk about life crashing in. People have lost loved ones. People have faced illnesses and disease. They have lost jobs. They have lost marriages and friendships. It's been a really hard year for people. And in those troubled times when life implodes, I want you to think about that hand of the baby Jesus wrapping around you, telling you that it is going to be okay, that you are good, that you are holy and that you are safe people. And some of you have had marvelous years. 2016 was a great year for you, and it's a year of celebration and hope. Then you also need to feel the hand of the baby in the manger wrap around you tonight, so that you may feel that sense of hope that God brings to us in the middle of our lives. And that's the beautiful thing about the baby in the manger. It reminds us of God's living presence in the middle of our lives, whether we're going through terrific times or times of turmoil, that God is always there with us as Emmanuel. Here's the amazing thing, is that I think with the presence of God in our lives, we can make beautiful music. You know, there are times periodically when I'm playing the violin where the scritching and the scratching stops, and I'm actually making music. It's fleeting. It happens real quick. But I kind of go, oh, that sounded like something. That sounded like something. I was actually able to play music. I think, the same is with our own lives. And sometimes in the middle of the scritching, the scratching, and the crunching of life, that sometimes we do make beautiful music. We're able to love and care and to forgive and to be reconciled. We're able to make that beautiful music in our lives where we discover hope and meaning and purpose. I think the key is that beautiful music is allowing the hands of God to come around you. You have to allow the hands of God to hold you and to nurture you and to care for you. When you're going through those tough times, you have to allow the hands of God to come around and wrap you with care and love. When life is good and joyful, you need to allow the hands of God to come with you and to celebrate life and the meaning of life and the hope of life. Can you feel the hands of God? I think that's part of the magic of Christmas Eve. Is in the magic we can actually sense and feel God's presence among us. Because here's the great thing. Here's the great thing. When we feel the presence of God, it's joyful. That's what Christmas Eve is all about. Joyful. And we sing, joy to the world, the Lord has come. It's joyful. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers be. It's joy. It's joy. Do you feel the joy when that master's hands are wrapped around you? And so tonight, he's going to take the violin out of my hands. For the first time. I did it at 2. I did it at 6. It was really funny. One person said it was an act of God. It was God's intervention. Heidi, they can either thank you or blame you after this is all done. What are you saying? I can't see what I'm doing. Mitch and I recorded this earlier. And we're going to ask you to join in. I'm playing the violin. Let's stand and sing this great song together. Please be seated. Well, this comes now to our magic night, the magic time of lighting candles on Christmas Eve. You know, when I talk with people, when Justin and I talk with people, actually Justin, Jane and I talk with people about the holy times of their lives, the sacred times of their lives, they talk about Christmas Eve and lighting candles on Christmas Eve as being that one moment when life feels right and things feel good. And we're reminded that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And we started by saying those lines. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Well, that's what these candles mean. It means that no matter what's going on with you in your life, that the light shines in your darkness. It's a light of hope. It's a light of meaning. It's a light of joy. As we sing Silent Night tonight, as you pass the light, you are passing the light of love, the light of God's presence with us. So let us pass the light and join in singing together, Silent Night.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory streamed from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born.
Raise your candles and look around at the beautiful light. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth, Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
Just one more moment. This holy moment. This magical moment of Christmas Eve. May God bless you and keep you. May God shape you and mold you. May God love you and hold you this day forth, now and forevermore. Amen.